Welcome to another episode of Moment of Clarity, your antidote to the cable news, the corporate news, the shove bullshit into your face all day long and tell you it smells like roses news. And in the interest, in the vein, in the path of trying to give you something other than what the cable news is presenting you with, the corporate news, I'm not talking about the convention today. The Democratic convention. Don't worry, I'll talk about it other times and talk about what a shit show it is and how it's just a big tent. Unfortunately, it's a circus tent. But it's such a big tent, we can fit a lot of Republicans in to that Democratic Party because guess what? Ain't much difference. So come on in. The sweet tea will taste the same. I hope today's video is better than yesterday's. Obviously, yesterday's had a lot of problems. Hopefully, it's a little smoother this time. But that was the man trying to hold me down. That's how he does it. He slows down your streaming services. But, yeah, what I want to talk about is the breaking news, breaking being a day or, not a day or two, let's say a week ago maybe. It was reported that they can now confirm, and this is from Mint Press News, Mint Press, great source, everyone should check it out. That they can confirm now that the U.S. military is active in 22 African nations. 22 African nations. How many, if you ask the average American, how many African countries are we currently active in? Is our U.S. military that we pay for currently active in? What do you think they'd say? You think they'd say, oh, 22? Absolutely. Or do you think they'd go, one or none? None, maybe? Is Africa a country? 22 African nations. And so this is U.S. Special Operations Forces. Super special, by the way. Operation Forces, where they're active in 22 African nations. They saw combat last year in 13 of those. So this is not just standing around, right? Combat is happening in most of these. U.S. Africa Command, our military command in Africa, which is called Africom, which kind of ironic, not much calm involved. So it's Africhaos should be a better name for it. But Africom generally claims that these special forces don't do anything that dramatic. You know, they go no further than what the military calls AAA missions, AAA missions. And that stands for advise, assist, and accompany. Advise, assist, and accompany. I don't know why I'm having so much trouble saying that. But, yeah, let me ask you this. Last time you had a jacked up dude with an automatic rifle and grenades on his hip and fucking full on paramilitary gear. Last time you had one of those advising you. How did it go? Was it peaceful? Was it not? Were you like, hey, you with the fucking roid rage veins ripping down your neck and the automatic rifle. Can you advise me on which of these flowers over here, which of these plants are edible? Can you advise me on what color to paint my shed? They don't advise. They're weapons of war, right? These individuals are weapons of war, and that's what they end up doing. And as I just said, they saw combat in 13 of those nations last year. That's what these are the ones people found out about. If the U.S. is active in 22 nations, probably there's a lot of combat we don't know about. But these are the ones we know about. The United States has roughly 6,000 military personnel scattered throughout the continent. This is, again, Mint Press News. Also, The Intercept has reported that the military operates 29, U.S. military operates 29 bases across the continent. Those are 29 of our roughly 900, maybe 800 military bases around the world that you and I fund as American taxpayers. If you're watching this in another country and you're not an American taxpayer, congratulations. You don't have as much of this blood on your hands. One of the huge drone hubs, the article says, is in Niger, something the Hill called the largest U.S. Air Force-led construction project of all time. Yeah, sounds like we're really hands-off on Africa, doesn't it? The largest African-led construction of all time. Here's a list of the countries, or I'm not gonna go through all of them, but here's most of them. In case you were wondering, which countries is the U.S. military fucking gunning people down in? Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, Libya, Egypt, Chad, Cameroon, Nigeria, Ghana, Ivory Coast, Senegal, Niger, Djibouti, Ethiopia, Somalia, Kenya, Tanzania, Botswana. Now I'm turning it Italian. I don't know why. Tanzania just got me in the Italian accent mood. And Madagascar. Not that Tanzania has anything to do with Italian. It's just the Ia. I like the Tanzania. Wouldn't it be great if there was one African nation that was just all fucking Italians? I think that'd be interesting. Anyway, yeah. So that's the list. That's not all of them. That's most of them. It's to continue in the article here, it's also clear that the United States plays a key role in training many nations, soldiers, and security forces. Training, right? This is, training is the nice term for teaching how to kill often innocent civilians. You give people weapons of war and they will use them. So if you give them armed drones, they will find a reason to use them, which often means innocent civilians die. If you give them a SWAT team and teach them, here's how to initiate SWAT attacks in our U.S. cities, it will get used. And that's why SWAT raids, if you look at the number of SWAT raids on a chart, they go up like this, whoop, over the last few years. Why? Because more and more city police departments have larger weapons of war for their SWAT teams. And guess what? They find reasons to use them. So all of a sudden, yeah, that little old lady who's selling weed out her back door, I think she deserves a SWAT team. I think we should definitely come flying through the window on goddamn ropes with our guns out. I think that's the best way to handle that. So, as many of you may imagine, this only partially includes, this 22 nations only partially includes the U.S. contractors. A lot of what the U.S. military does is black sites, black ops that people cannot find out about. But some of these contractors are paid by us, the taxpayer, paid by the American people, and therefore you do find out about some of them. For example, the U.S. pays Bancroft International, a private military contractor, to train elite Somali units who are at the forefront of the fighting in the country's internal conflicts. According to the Mail and the Guardian, these Somali fighters are likely also funded by the U.S. taxpayer. So, for those of you who are American citizens, every time you write that check, think about all the Somalis you helped kill or imprison or whatever the fuck they're doing over there with the training from our contractors and the weaponry. And here's the thing, if it were literally just like, hey, there are bad guys, fucking jihadists who are beheading people, and we want to protect the good guys against these people that are doing a lot of harm over there, that'd be one thing. But it cannot come from the world's biggest killer. It cannot come from the United States, where clearly we do not know how to be at peace. We cannot do it. It is impossible for us to, at least looking over the past several decades, like the peace is not in our vocabulary. So when we're going over and killing 1 million people in Iraq and killing people every day, more than the Taliban in Afghanistan, and killing people in Syria and killing people in Libya, you can't then turn to that person and say, hey, I also think it'll be a good idea that you help them over here. Because that's like turning to some fucking mass murder, Green River Killer or something, and being like, hey, can you look after my family? I know you did all that awful killing and shit, but that was over there. Over here, can you just I got a couple of kids and just, they like to play with the Legos. So if you just help them out with that for a few hours, that'd be really cool. It cannot come from us. So for anyone who wanted to argue, well, I know what's going on in Somalia and what the U.S. has done is very positive, doesn't fucking matter, all right? Doesn't fucking matter. Can't come from the world's largest death machine. And generally speaking, we only will do that, even if it were, let's suspend disbelief and say, oh, everything they've done is just so positive, it's wonderful. We only do that when we are able to exploit a nation. when we can use it for exploitation, when we can steal their resources or force them into economic deals that benefit us, when we can do it for geopolitical power. We never do it, never do it, because you know what? These people just need help. Doesn't happen. It all comes down to resources and how we can exploit that area. And as many of you know, Africa has long been the piggy bank that the industrial power of the British Empire, the U.S. Empire, that we have gained our wealth over. It was the piggy bank. And the way we exploit that piggy bank has shifted over the years. Used to be slaves, right? And just straight up stealing the resources. Now there's other things like the IMF and World Bank projects and things like that. There's other ways to exploit African nations, but it continues to be a big, giant vault that America and other Western nations are trying to rob. And one of the best examples is Libya, right? We, along with NATO, just utterly destroyed Libya. Took it from, it was one of the most developed African nations. One of the most developed, and this is not to say everything Gaddafi did is fucking perfect, all right? You can't, if you email me and I know that Gaddafi did this awful thing, sure, probably, yeah. But the point is, this was an African nation that was one of the most developed in the world, and now is fucking chaos. It is just torn apart war zones with open slave markets. And that is because we decided we needed to stop Gaddafi. And why did we need to stop Gaddafi? Was it because he did this horrible thing or this horrible thing? If there is evidence of shit like that? No. It was largely because he was talking with other African nations about creating a new gold standard in the African nations, creating a new currency that would get them off of the U.S. petrodollar, get them out of our central banking systems, and other ways in which to join African nations together. And doing that would have been a huge geopolitical threat to the U.S. It would have meant we can't keep robbing the piggy bank. It would have meant that we couldn't we keep African nations fully and wholly separated so that they despise each other, or there's wars broken out, or we have puppet governments here and there, so that we can't keep control of them in that way, by divide and conquer, right? So if Libya succeeded in getting African nations to partner together and start growing and become successful and have their own strong militaries, then the U.S. would lose a level of strength and a level of wealth. And what did we do? We went over to NATO and we said, hey, we can't have this shit going down, all right? Let's get some jets up in the air. And we fucking bombed the shit out of them and made sure that Libya turned into a failed state, as we tried desperately to do in Syria as well. That is our system. That's how we play it. Divide and conquer. Another point here that you will not hear talked about, even if this discussion is had on your corporate airwaves. They wouldn't have this discussion, but if they talked about Africom, the occasional report you see about it, or something like that, or there was there's a moment where a few U.S. troops get killed in one of these African nations, and then you might see 1 day's worth of coverage on your mainstream airwaves. And what is that? Where does that come from? Well, what is it they won't talk about? Well, here's another point of it. We have a death economy, an economy based on killing and war, and to the tune of trillions of dollars. And we could have a life economy. We could have an economy based on life and creating health and creating, a higher level of happiness for many people around the world and ending oppression. Instead, we have the reverse. If you look at it, the amount of money made off of war and exploitation and bombing is just insane. And when that is threatened, when that endless war is threatened, the deep state and our government of kleptocrats move in and make sure it continues. So for all the god-awful things Donald Trump has done, and I'm not going to list them here, you can fucking go read it up on it yourself. Donald Trump is a goddamn catastrophe in a million ways. But in certain things, like for a moment trying to create peace with North Korea, who stopped him? Our fucking military, our military industrial complex, and the entire war state, the entire corporate war state jumped in, frothing at the mouth, flipping out. How dare he possibly create even a minute of peace with North Korea? Weapon stocks collapsed. All right. They lost billions of dollars in that day when he announced there was going to be a deal with North Korea. But because he's got the mental capacity of a child, they easily influenced him and pushed him in a different direction. Pompeo and Bolton and such went into the meetings and took a big shit on the boardroom table, and it was over. And luckily, the weapon stocks all made a nice recovery because we need those nuclear bombs to keep threatening North Korea. Anyway. Long story short, we are active in a lot of African nations, and you hardly ever see it talked about. Something tells me you're not going to see it at your Democratic convention. I don't think. Not so much. You're not going to hear the fact that we're endlessly at war. Because, that doesn't fit into the divide and conquer two-party strategy. See, isn't it nice that they use the same strategy for so many things? Like they use it to make sure we can keep controlling Africa to some degree, and they use it to make sure they can control the American people. It's divide and conquer it's just a beautiful game plan. It's nice to see it work out so well. By the way, thank you all so much for joining me. If you're over at Facebook, please remember to come on over to youtube.com/Moment of Clarity and subscribe. I'm trying to do many more of these live streams. Please tune in as frequently as you can. Please share them. And, I am endlessly suppressed, but when you guys share this stuff or tell people about it or tell people you get your news from my YouTube channel or my podcasts, that makes a difference. So let's keep fighting out there, ignore the goddamn endless cacophony of nonsense that is sprayed at you, and actually focus on the deeper issues that essentially never get talked about, because the goal is to just continually push distraction. And actually getting to distraction, let me just say one more thing, is that who makes this decision? Who makes the decision on like Africom? Who makes the decision for us to be in 22 African nations? Do you think they sat down with Donald Trump and said, we'd like to have some men in Niger? How's that sound? Doubt it. Doubt he gave a shit. Even if they did sit down with him and say that, he probably said, yeah, send your men wherever you want. I don't give a shit. These decisions are not being made by the politicians that we so-called elect. They're being made by these, warmongering assholes that are unelected and placed into positions of power. People like Bolton and Pompeo and heads of the CIA and the Pentagon. And that is not an accident. It's by design. All right? It's by design. These things are decided while we are distracted, while we bicker about who tweeted what and what this little congressperson said and how it was offensive. And that is very useful to continue our endless wars, continue our exploitation and extraction of the wealth around the world. Is this just kind of distraction on a level that is unbelievable? And so I'm not saying Congress people don't say offensive things, but if you find yourself just yelling about what someone tweeted, again, you've missed the point. All right. Thanks a lot, everybody. Keep fighting.